Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It is Full Press NFL Weekly. That's right. We have been, not here on camera since Super Bowl Sunday, so it's been quite some time. We've had a few episodes here and there, but hockey is over, basketball is over, and who the hell cares about baseball in June? I'm sorry. I just look. Gun to your head, diehard baseball fans out there. Yes, I understand you get some enjoyment from baseball in June, but come on, let's be real here, okay? I don't know what's playing in the background right now, but apparently, oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Like I said, it's been a while since we've been on the air, and apparently I had the video playing in the background, which kind of threw us all off. But anyways, welcome everyone. Happy Sunday. Happy almost end of June. Braden, how's it going, my man? It's the last weekend, last Sunday in June. It's almost July, which means it's almost NFL training camp.
Yeah, enjoying the summer activities, but like you said, it's kind of weird to not have very many sports on right now. It's kind of weird, I guess, for being a fan of teams in Kansas City. You kind of got the Chiefs at the top of their league, and then the Royals at the very bottom. So I guess it kind of balances out. You mentioned, baseball. I just have a hard time getting into it anymore. So I guess I'm not really missing much anyway, but yeah, it's hockey's probably one of my favorite things to watch. So once that ended, it was going to be tough to kind of see the end of that. Really cool to see Vegas win their first ever Stanley Cup championship. But yeah, I can't wait for football to get going, and just interesting to see what kind of news we'll still get in these next few weeks. I know we're going to talk about some interesting players, but there's a lot of buzz around some teams as well that it's just fresh to see them kind of in the headlines in a good way.
Yeah, and look, I mean the obviously the big name out there right now is DeAndre Hopkins. As far as we know, he's had two visits, one to the Tennessee Titans, one to the New England Patriots, and so far, kind of things are just not progressing any further than that. And, part of me tells, look, his price tag, if you believe the early reports, is high. And look, if you're a free agent like he is, go out and try to get every single dollar you can. But situations like this can also lead to some longer, I guess, forays into free agency. I mean, where I think, excuse me, I think the Patriots are actually a good option for him. And I think he knows that. I just don't think that they're going to come close to paying what he wants. So it's a matter of, well, is another team going to jump in there and offer him not only the money, but also at least a good opportunity? Or is this price tag going to drop enough for the Patriots to pounce? We'll see. But I got a feeling that we're going to get a resolution to this sooner rather than later, because if you're DeAndre Hopkins, yeah, maybe you want to let this leak into training camp like week one. But as much as you would love to miss the grueling days of summer during training camp, it's probably a good idea for him to get on the football field with his new team and get acclimated before the preseason and then, of course, the regular season. So I do think that that's a situation that's going to resolve itself soon. And I'm not saying that it's going to be the Patriots, but right now, based on the teams that he's visited, certainly based on the two teams he's visited, I think the Patriots are the far better option. It's just a matter of, is there another team, Kansas City, Buffalo, that's going to get in the mix if his price drops drastically?
Yeah, and I guess the interesting thing on the timing, I know in the past you never want to root for injuries, but patience has definitely helped some of the older free agents out there in the past. But you kind of mentioned maybe needing to see that work on the field. This is a guy that obviously missed the early part of last season, had a nasty injury, I believe the end of the year before 2021. So we really haven't seen him complete a full season in a long time either. And I think that's something that if they had the cap space, I think Kansas City definitely would give them a lot of pause, just because they've kind of stayed away from those older guys and gotten much younger around Patrick Mahomes as much as they can. So I think that's something that is interesting with the timing on when he might sign. And you mentioned the Patriots probably being a better option. It's interesting with the price tag thing because I think just in the past we've seen the players that Bill Belichick has respect for usually finds a way to kind of seal that deal. So I don't know if it's maybe going to be as hard maybe for him to take that deal with New England just because of that respect factor. But at the same time, I think it's just that Odell Beckham deal just kind of it's almost like the Christian Kirk, I think, free agency deal. And how that kind of affected the contract extensions last year. It's really put a bigger wrench in this than I think anyone could have expected for that price point. But yeah, I think it's just that Belichick respect factor seems like could be the driving force to maybe making that deal happen.
And look, there's no doubt about it going to, excuse me, New England is a gamble because, well, your quarterback isn't Tom Brady. However, it's a gamble because the outcome could also be very positive as much as it could be negative. And by that, I mean, we've seen some really good football out of Mac Jones. You can speak, better than most on the impact that a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster might have on a team that was almost allergic to yards after catch. Now, again, understanding that creating a lot of yak in this league is obviously a lot to do with scheme and coaching and everything like that. But you also need the players that are good and instinctual to do that. The Patriots didn't really have that last season. Juju kind of adds that element to their team. So they're already better offensively. I think Mike Gesicki is a nice addition to the lineup. You go ahead and you add DeAndre Hopkins. Now, Mac Jones doesn't have any more excuses. And it doesn't mean like, well, you either have a phenomenal MVP season or you suck. No, what it means is he has every piece in front of him to succeed. Not only the players, but the experience to this point. He's in year 3. Now, if he was a rookie, I'd still say, okay, it doesn't really matter who's around you. You still have to learn how to play the game of football at the professional level. He's been in the league for 2 years. He's seen some highs. He's seen some lows. He's played some really good football. He's played some bad football. He's seen a lot of this already in 2 seasons, so he has that experience. So if you go out, you get DeAndre Hopkins, all of a sudden you have a lineup that has Juju Smith-Schuster, that has Mike Gesicki, that has Hunter Henry, if he's healthy, and has a solid offensive line. All you need now is the quarterback to perform at a high level. And I don't think Mac Jones is too far off from doing that. It's just a matter of if he can do it consistently. And I think adding the talent, as we've seen with other players, can, go a long way in kind of getting that consistency, consistent.
Yeah, and I think what would be really exciting about adding him in that offense is going back to kind of Mac Jones' success in Alabama. The receivers he had around him, he was really good at kind of those vertical shots down the field, and I think that's where Hopkins can kind of still separate himself among some of the other top receivers in the game, and just kind of how that could pair up with someone like a Juju who's kind of a power forward, going to eat up space in the middle of the field. So I think it would that addition would kind of make them a little bit more versatile than what they've had in that pass catching room the last couple of years, and definitely could create a lot more mismatches. And you think how that could impact their division race in the AFC East. It would definitely put a lot more pressure on those other offenses to kind of keep pace ahead of them, and obviously continue to do what they've kind of done these last couple of years, I should say.
Yeah, and look, I mean, this division is going to be very good. If anything, not it should be good on paper. You look across the board. Obviously, you have Buffalo, who I think they're past the point of ascension. I think they're pretty close to plateauing and kind of going back the opposite way. Not to say that they're incapable of winning right now, but I'm just saying that their momentum going into the season is obviously not what it was. I mean, last year was at its absolute climax where, I mean, this Buffalo team is going to win 14 games. They're going to just steamroll or stampede, should I say, to a Super Bowl title. Obviously, that didn't happen. We've seen a little bit of not necessarily a regression, because obviously we haven't seen any football this season, but we've seen a little bit of tension start to build. The lack of winning is starting to become, more of a focus. You can only ride that wave of potential for so long. Eventually, you have to follow through on that potential. And so far, the Bills have fallen short. So the Bills are obviously still good. They should be favored in that division. I don't think it's any sure thing, though. This is not, the Bills are 100% winning division. If they don't, it'll be a shock. It'll be like, no, I mean, it'll be a mild surprise, perhaps, but maybe 6 weeks into the season, we'll see the Jets or Miami or New England and say, yeah, it's probably not it wouldn't be a mild surprise. It would be very likely that they don't win the division. But anyways, you have Buffalo, you have Miami. Again, another team that is really kind of banking on a good season from their quarterback. And then the Jets, the same thing, but kind of in a different way. Obviously, in Miami and New England, you're looking, excuse me, at quarterbacks looking to prove themselves, whereas in New York, you're looking at, a quarterback that you hope can kind of recapture some of his past glory and elevate a team that's been starved for success. So the AFC East is just ripe with storylines. It might be the most fascinating division this season, and not only just for the players involved, but again, who's going to win that division? I know Buffalo's going to be favored, and they should be, but man, they're I mean, here's the other thing, Braden, though. I'm saying all this right now to be like, well, by week 4 or 5, we could be looking at the Dolphins, the Jets, and the Patriots as just mediocre teams, and Buffalo clearly has the best team. So it can go both ways here. I'm just saying I think it's going to be the former rather than the latter. I think this division is going to be pretty tightly contested for much of the year, and Buffalo is really going to have to watch their back, because I think these teams are going to be gunning for them pretty early.
And it's just interesting. We saw the AFC West get all this hype last year, but I think the difference is in the AFC East. You kind of have at least some historical context clues that point to. You mentioned just Aaron Rodgers, his history, and obviously everyone obviously just points to that one Super Bowl. But I think just his ability to kind of gallivate that team. You look at the energy surrounding the Jets right now. It's just all positive in the locker room and with the coaching staff, and then the history of somebody like Belichick, and really the last couple of years for Miami, when Tua's been on the field, they've looked like one of the most dangerous offenses in the league. So if he can stay healthy, I think the history is on his side. So I don't really think we're going to get an AFC West situation where the Raiders had never really reached their potential. We kind of saw signs of potential decline of Russell Wilson going into his Denver tenure. So I think the historical context clues are at least favoring that being a competitive division, probably all of 2023.
Yeah, I know Jets fans are just hoping that the Aaron Rodgers situation isn't a repeat of the Russell Wilson situation. I don't think it will be. I mean, I caution Jet fans not to expect MVP Aaron Rodgers. But I still think he's look, any quarterback going into that situation, any veteran any starting quarterback in this league for the most part is an improvement over what they had last year. So right then and there, they're going to be better. Obviously, you add Aaron Rodgers, he's going to elevate the talent around him. Now, here's the thing, though. He has his flaws as well. Like, this isn't the sure thing. Like, okay, he's going to take the Jets to a Super Bowl. He might get to a conference championship game, but that's a big hurdle for him to overcome, let alone, overcoming it for this franchise, the Jets, who haven't been back to the Super Bowl since 1969. So it's a lot of pressure on a guy who I think does pretty well under pressure. But, and this is part of his history, the deeper he goes, primarily that conference championship round has been kind of a disaster for him. And he has almost as much pressure on him as the Jet. Look, the Jets right now, they're playing with house money. They are so used to losing and failing that anything remotely looking like success this season will be a success. Like if they win and go to the playoffs and maybe win a playoff game, that's a great season. There's going to be fans out there that are like, "Oh man, I was really hoping for a Super Bowl." No, the reality of it is for that franchise, that's a success. For Aaron Rodgers, that's a failure. I don't care what team he's quarterbacking, that's a failure. This isn't a guy like Tom Brady who came in with 6 Super Bowls under his belt to Tampa Bay. No, this is a guy who, relative to the career span of a player versus the existence of a franchise, he's almost just as starred for a Super Bowl as the Jets franchise, if not more, based on his potential and how he's been covered as a player. So, yeah, I mean, like, look, it's not a sure thing in New York, and we saw some pretty good things out of Brett Favre that first season, but it quickly went downhill in the second half of that season. And, you know, it's going to be some growing pains with Aaron Rodgers in New York, but my gut's telling me they are going to be better. They are going to make the playoffs. But beyond that, again, I mean, I'm just basing this on the long history of Aaron Rodgers in the conference championship games. It's going to be tough for him to get out of that conference championship, especially if it's a game against Kansas City, Cincinnati, even Buffalo, if they're in that position. You know, it's going to be tough. So I like the move for the Jets. It's certainly the right move for the Jets. But I caution them to starting to expect a Super Bowl run. It's going to be a long process to get there, and a lot of things are going to have to bounce their way.
Especially, I think when you look at just those bubble teams in the AFC. I mean, Denver, you got to expect, just with the coaching change, that they have to be at least kind of a competitive team for a wild card spot. Baltimore, I mean, if you get Lamar Jackson for a full season, first year after getting his extension, I mean, there's just we talk about how deep the AFC is every year, but I think there's something about some of these teams that just seem to never really go away, like a Baltimore. I think that's a team that always comes to mind for me. But even Pittsburgh, I mean, Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season, and if he can do that again, I think Pittsburgh at least improved enough to where I think they're going to be a better team on paper than they were last year. Probably a little bit easier schedule this year as well, playing the AFC South. So I think that's what's going to be fascinating for the Jets real quick, is just kind of how they stack in the power rankings of this AFC.
Yeah, and look, I mean, anytime you're, Aaron Rodgers is a fascinating topic as it is. You add in the layer of New York media and the fact that, the AFC East is filled with fairly prominent teams, from obviously teams like Buffalo, who have been in the AFC mix for a couple of years now. The Patriots and Bill Belichick, we all know why. The Dolphins are an up-and-coming franchise that has a lot of history. So, the AFC East is an easy team or easy division market. I mean, it's not like the AFC South, who have the Colts, okay, but the Jags, the Texans, and the Titans. Come on now. They don't have that history, and I understand. They weren't all. Look, Indianapolis used to be the Baltimore Colts. They have a lot of history. Indianapolis has a lot of history. The Titans, well, they used to be the Houston Oilers, not anymore. So the Jaguars, expansion team. Houston, expansion team. They don't have that type of allure. So, the AFC East automatically is always going to have that. But this season in particular, there just seems to be a lot of opportunity for all these teams. And unlike last season, where we felt like Buffalo was a pretty sure thing for the division, it's not like that this year. So, yeah, it's really going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But that's obviously something we're going to monitor, and obviously it's going to be a big story from week 1 on. So, like I said at the top of the show, we are still just a few weeks away from NFL training camp. We're kind of just getting through the very end of the dead period here in the NFL. We're starting to get some news, some little things trickling in, but This is obviously going to be going back to DeAndre Hopkins and kind of what his impact. This is how the conversation started, was DeAndre Hopkins' impact on the AFC East. But the storylines and the focus on that division all season is going to be pretty intense. I think it's going to be a race that goes down to the wire. But I don't know. I mean, what's your gut say? Let's stick on this division for a minute, because I do want to, it's June 25th. I want to get your gut feeling about who's going to win this division. Now, maybe you can make the assumption that DeAndre Hopkins joins the Patriots. You don't have to. But I don't know. I feel like I'm down on Buffalo this season, not because I think they're going to take a huge step back, but I think they're going to be far closer to the pack, and I think it's going to open up the door for, well, all these teams in the division.
Yeah, I guess with Buffalo taking a step back, I was kind of talking about this with somebody else not too long ago when we were just kind of trying to rank all the position groups across the NFL, and I think when you really look at what Buffalo's done the last, offseason and even the year before, it seems like they've kind of put a lot more pressure on Josh Allen, I think, than they really meant to. Gabe Davis didn't really take that step that a lot of people were expecting at wide receiver last year. And then Stephon Diggs, and him, that team just seems to kind of be in a tough spot with that relationship. So I think with Buffalo, it just seems like their nucleus and kind of the top stars that they have. I think it's a really top heavy group. So I actually kind of lean the Jets at this point in time. I think it's just going to be you're getting an Aaron Rodgers that is kind of playing out of spite a little bit. Not like that's anything new, but I think just kind of learning how much more that relationship was torn in Green Bay. I think he's just so excited to kind of be in a new spot. And this was a team that I think, like you said earlier, it's just without the quarterback last year, everything else was kind of projecting really well. Top 5 defense, I think, on paper, and probably you look at the skilled players they have. I think you have exactly the kind of pieces you need around Aaron Rodgers. So at this point in time, I do think Buffalo's a little top heavy. I don't know what it is about Miami. I just can't bet on them, I think, to be the division winner here. So I kind of am leaning to the Jets at this point in time.
Yeah, and look, I mean, there may be some sort of how sometimes you get some film on a player in the second season, they tend to come back to earth. Maybe teams and coaches get a little bit more film on how Mike McDaniel coaches football. He doesn't have the quarterback that's going to kind of mitigate those mistakes. That's the difference between all-time great quarterbacks and just pretty good ones. And I think Tua is just a pretty good one on and you said it earlier, when he's healthy, and that's a big thing. I mean, when he's healthy, he's a pretty good quarterback. Consistency wise, I'm not going to say he's the most consistent, but he's still a pretty good quarterback. The problem is he's just not staying healthy. So to me, I look at it and I say, okay, I think other teams in the division, you talk about the Bills, obviously the Patriots with Bill Belichick, they're going to get a better read on what this Miami team does. So what else do they do well? Well, on paper, they've acquired some great players on defense. Do I think Jalen Ramsey is going to be an all-pro cornerback, or is he going to be, well, any quarterback in their late or early 30s that changes teams and has a reputation of being great, but then all of a sudden just falls off the face of the earth? I think he's not going to be that bad, but I think he's going to be more of just an average everyday cornerback. And unfortunately for the Dolphins, that's not what you got him to be. You know what I mean? You got him to be a difference maker. I just don't know if he's going to be that guy going forward. And for the Dolphins, so yeah, I mean, I'm not completely sold on the Dolphins. Like I said, I'm lukewarm on Tua for the most part, and that includes questioning whether or not he can stay healthy. I do think Josh Allen is the best quarterback in the division. I think. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I do believe that. I'm sorry. I was going to say I got confused for a second. I thought I said Mac Jones. I was going to say no. Josh Allen, best quarterback. I mean, obviously, Aaron Rodgers, all-time great. I think Mac Jones has the biggest ceiling, I guess you can say, or biggest growth potential. Let's put it that way. I don't think he obviously can. I'm not saying he can exceed like Josh Allen or whatever, but I feel like he has the biggest growth potential. You add in a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, I think that matters as well. So definitely a storyline and fascinating subject we're going to cover and follow all offseason and into the season. But that's going to do it for us here today. Like I said, we are going to be slowly getting things back to normal. Eventually, every single Sunday, you're going to see our faces on the screen. But for now, we're going to be keeping up with the biggest stories and trying to get this going once again. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we will talk to you soon.